Welcome to the Old Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast with Michael Becker and Paul Peebles. During this program, you will hear interviews with real-life successful investors who will share their stories and provide useful advice on how to acquire, finance, and operate apartment complexes. Now, here they are, Michael Becker and Paul Peebles.
Welcome to the Old Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Peebles, National Underwriter for Old Capital. Joining me today would typically be the master of real estate, the governor of the state of Texas, Mr. Michael Becker, but he is on another due diligence assignment. We'll have him on next week. I'm confirmed. Him and his group over at SPI and the success that they're having these days in this, very interesting market of multifamily ownership and operations. He'll talk a little bit more about what's going on with the group over at SPI and the market that he is seeing in North Texas. So in the podcast today, we have the professor himself, Mr. James Zhang. James, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Paul.
And Ricardo Hinojosa, the number one rep over at Old Capital. Ricardo, how are you?
Doing good. It's good to be here.
Great. James, what's going on in the Old Capital world these days?
We have two events coming up. One, we are doing our bus tour August 22nd, which is a Friday. So come on down and enjoy a little Texas barbecue with us and go look at some properties in the meantime. So that's a one-day event, August 22nd. You can go to oldcapitalpodcast.com and click on the link there to sign up for that one. And then the Old Capital Conference is our big event. We'll have probably 400 plus investors at that event, October 8th and 9th. This year, we are doing it at the soccer stadium in Frisco.
Yeah, it's a wonderful event. If you go to oldcapitalconference.com, oldcapitalconference.com, you can RSVP. Again, if you are thinking about coming to Texas, make your reservation early. Come see us in October. It is the place to be. We really would like you to network, whether you're an LP that wants to meet GPs or a GP that wants to meet some LPs. I was walking a property yesterday, Ricardo, onto a deal that you had financed a couple of years ago. And I met with the borrower on the property, the potential buyer on the property, and he brought a partner with him. And I was like, how do you guys know each other? They met at one of the Old Capital bus trips. And they had last month closed on a large multifamily property that my guy had raised, a couple $1 million to invest into the deal. I'm not going to say that happens at every relationship, but you do meet some of the players that can and will invest in your deals and want to be part of your team. So it's not often that I get up on a soapbox and I talk to you honestly about what I think about what's going on in the marketplace. And I think sometimes there's conflicts that go on, and I want to make sure that you kind of understand the conflicts, because if I didn't talk about it, you wouldn't know about it. And so James Ricardo kind of said, go kind of easy. I said, I'll go easy, but I'm going to tell you some of the key points that I think are important of what I'm seeing out there that I think is going to be important for you if you're thinking about buying multifamily properties and you're trying to make a position to maybe quit your IT job or get out of whatever you're doing and want to get into multifamily. I'm going to pull the curtain back a little bit and kind of share with you what I see after doing this for 38, 39 years and closing thousands of transactions about really what's going on in the marketplace. And it's just not going on right here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's going on across the country. But I have some great concerns. I actually call them red flags. And it's red flags in the sense of there's a partnership that goes along with the investment sales group and the capital markets. So if you are a large multifamily investment sales company that has an internal capital markets group, that one that kind of provides the debt in the deal, I think that's a red flag. And I'm going to try to get these guys to give me some input and try to hold me back, James or Ricardo. But I'm just going to kind of tell you the way I see it. I just have a couple points, bullet points, and we can kind of go over and I want to get your 2 cents. So the concern I have is red flags is when a investment sales broker says to you, use our in-house mortgage broker. And this is often framed up as a value add or something that will win you the deal. You've probably heard that before if you've been in multifamily. It'll win you this deal if you use our guy. In reality, it often locks you into a channel where the broker's loyalty is split or unclear. If the mortgage broker is paying a kickback or a referral fee to the investment sales rep, it means that the sales rep has two masters, the seller who pays their commission and the mortgage broker who pays a referral. So that's number one. Number two, you may have heard this. The seller prefers we use our mortgage broker. This is a massive conflict. The investment sales rep is hired by the seller, so loyalty is maximizing the seller's price. And when they recommend a lender or mortgage broker to you, the buyer, why would they care if you want to get the best terms? The real interest is in closing the deal quickly and profitably and possibly double dipping via mortgage broker fees. Number three, you get a better shot, quote, at winning this deal if you work with our broker. This is sometimes true, but that should tell you everything. It's not about your merits as a buyer or your loan qualifications. It's about the kickbacks and the soft pressure behind the scenes. It's a poker game where you're playing against a team of two sharing your hand. Charlie Munger said, which I think is absolutely correct, you can determine the outcomes when you can determine what the incentives are. So here's what's happening behind closed doors. Again, I'm up on my soapbox. James Ricardo, pull me down, please. An origination fee on a $10 million transaction, maybe 1%, $100,000. The referral fees or revenue share could be between 20 and 40% that mortgage lender pays to the investment sales reps. That's not unheard of. It could be $20,000 or $40,000 secretly going from the capital markets broker to the investment sales rep. This is often not disclosed to the buyer or borrower. And crucially, this money is coming out of your deal, not theirs. Why this is a conflict of interest? You're the borrower. You deserved unbiased advice, especially when taking on millions, possibly tens of millions of dollars in debt. But when the seller's rep is getting paid by both the seller and the mortgage broker, and the mortgage broker is trying to close the deal quickly to satisfy both parties, then you're being possibly set up in a game where the cards are stacked against you. And I think a poker analogy is perfectly put, is that would you play poker if the other two players were secretly working together and sharing information about your hand? That's exactly what happens when the investment sales rep working for the seller gets paid by the mortgage broker who's supposedly be working for you. And you, the buyer, think that everybody's playing fair. You're not playing poker. You're playing against the house. And that's where I think the conversation should go next, is what do you do instead? And how to be Switzerland in lending. Switzerland, they're independent. So one, work with an independent mortgage broker or lender. Someone's sole interest is getting you the best financing terms. Ask direct questions. Are you paying any referral fees to the investment sales teams? It's not going to show up in the closing statement. Or are you affiliated any way with the seller's broker? If they hesitate or can't answer clearly, walk. Number three, disclose that you won't accept or pay referral fees. You want transparency. This also positions you as a sophisticated buyer. Or four, use your own attorney or capital markets advisor. Even your own attorney will help you understand and uncover if there's anything that's going on. A second set of eyes helps conflicts or cozy relationships. So why is this something to be concerned about? Because in the residential market, residential mortgage brokers cannot pay referral fees to real estate agents. It's illegal under the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, called RESPA. That act came out in 1974. It's a federal law that governs residential real estate transactions involving federally related mortgage loans, which includes most home purchases involving bank and mortgage companies. Section 8 of RESPA prohibits, quote, any fee, kickback, or thing of value for the referral of business related to real estate settlement services. It's not allowed. A residential mortgage broker gives a real estate agent $1,000 for sending them a borrower. That's a clear RESPA violation. They could go to jail. This was to prevent consumers from not seeing the hidden fees or the conflicts of interest. It ensures transparency. So conflicts of interest in commercial real estate aren't illegal, but they are dangerous if hidden. In a world of multi-million-dollar transactions, every basis point matters and every hidden incentive shapes behavior. You don't want to be the only one at the table who thinks the game is being played straight. If you're playing poker with people sharing each other's hands, you're not a gambler. You're being hustled. All right, get me off my soapbox, guys. Where am I wrong?
So Let me start with the line that we always use is that this is unfair business. And at any PSA that you sign, it basically says you are on your own. You are by yourself. So you have to stand up for yourself in this business. And so I wrote down sort of three things that where, let me give you the scenario of, let's say you've worked with myself or anyone at Old Capital for 10 years and you've done 20 loans with our group and we've got the process down and you're bidding on a deal today and the listing broker says, well, meet, I'm just going to make up a name, Joe, down the hall. I want you to use Joe on this deal. And you have no relationship with that person. You have no idea if they're going to be able to close. You have no idea what the hell was Joe doing a week ago. I have no idea. He could have been selling shoes or selling cars, Paul likes to say. So, number one, you have no relationship with them. And then you are having to put $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 of your money at the title company that's going hard day one or day 30. And you're relying on Joe to get you 75, 80% of the money. So number one, no relationship with that person before this transaction. Number two, as the lender, and even as your quote unquote buyer broker to some extent, when we are walking properties with you, when we are touring that property, doing the inspections, doing the third parties, engineering report, environmental reports, title searches, we are on your side of the table to make sure that anything that is not correct in terms of quality of the property or title or legal or any of those things, we're there on your side to make sure that you have all the information and we are not holding anything back. We're going to show you everything. Whereas, let's say Joe, he's going to show you the minimum amount that they need to show you in terms of information. And then the third thing is, we're with you for 45 to 60 days. We close the deal. Now you are getting your loan serviced by Joe's company. So it could be on the Fannie Freddie side, there's, let's say, 20 to 25 DUS lenders on the Fannie side and then seller servicers on the Freddie side. If you've got a loan with 10 of these guys, each one of those guys is going to have a different servicer, a different process, and some servicers are better than others. And so while you're with us for 45 to 60 days, you might be with that servicer for 5, 10 years. And that can materially impact your business as well in terms if you can't get rehab dollars out, you can't get reserves out. There's a lot of things that can go on the servicing side. So taking you back to the very beginning, if you are in charge and you're making the decision, you have to stand up and you have to say, here's my bid on this property and this is who I'm using for the loan. And if that does not win you the deal, you have to be willing to stand your ground or walk from the deal. Those were my three things. A little bit shorter than your soapbox, Paul.
Ricardo,
A couple of things to add there. So in James's example, I mean, and Paul mentioned it earlier, it's all around the incentives, right? So Joe, in that example, Joe, the mortgage broker that works for the sales broker and works for the seller. That's where that relationship is. He doesn't know you. Our relationship, our goal is to build a long-term relationship with our clients, right? So our incentive is not to get this deal done, right? So if we're getting this deal, if I'm talking to a client, if James is talking to a client, we're here to put you in the best position to have long-term success. Our objective is not one deal. Joe's objective is to maximize results on this deal for the seller and for the sales broker. So you just have to understand where the incentives lie. And we've known you for several years. In James's example, there's a lot at stake in these long-term relationships that we have with our clients. And we don't screw that up over one deal, right? So that's where our positions lie. I'll leave it at that.
sometimes these capital markets people, some of them are great loan officers. I just think it's a huge conflict between a group that is owned, that does investment sales, sells real estate, sells multifamily, sells apartments, sells retail, sells everything that is owned by the lender, owned by the bank. That's a conflict. And it's that so when you talk with the capital markets person, the lender, it's like you're talking to the investment salesperson who's then telling the seller what your cards are. Do you have a seven of hearts? Do you have a six of clubs? That seller knows exactly what you have in the hand. You try to go back and retrade the deal, capital markets, whether it's intentional or not, tells the listing broker what's going on, tells the seller, oh, we're not going to renegotiate this deal. There's a huge conflict. I'm not going to say it's like dealing with the mafia or the extortion, but it kind of feels like that somebody walks into your store and says, I know you've had your garbage being taken out by XYZ. Today, we're going to take over the garbage business and you're going to pay us a larger fee. And you're like, what? It's like, I come from Chicago. It gives me the certain creeps. That's how sometimes it feels when you have people telling you who you're going to use in your business that you have a lot more at risk than they do. Second point James brought up, which I thought was critical, is that when these loans get serviced, we find the best solution for you. So when we originate this loan, we're looking for not just the 45 days or the lowest rate. That's what we're trying to do. And trying to get the most loan dollars. That's what we're trying to do. If it makes sense, if that's what you want is the highest loan dollars in the deal, we're going to try to get that done for you. But it's really the 9.5 years. If you took out a 10-year loan, it's the 6 years. If you took out a 7-year loan, that is the time that the relationship with the servicer is so critical. You need a favor, you ask, they're going to do it. If you have a long-term relationship with that DUS lender, the delegated underwriter, Fannie Mae servicer, that may have 10-year loans or 5-year loans, but if you spread it around to multiple different lenders, multiple different DUS lenders, you can't build a relationship. The relationship is going to save you if you need help. There's no relationship if you send it to everybody else in the book. James, any comments? Ricardo, any feedback?
Yeah, I've got another thing I'll say is that most of the brokers in this market, and we've been doing this for a long time, have great relationships with the broker network. A lot of them do have their in-house capital markets team. But if you come to them with, hey, here's my team, most of the brokers understand that, hey, they want you to use your A team. They may be incentivized to use their internal team, but if you stand up and say, hey, here's my A team, I've been doing business for quite a while, here's my group, they're going to be just fine. There are only a couple in town that are difficult when it comes to this topic. For the most part, brokers understand this and they'll nudge you a little bit up front. But if you stand your ground and say, hey, this is my team, you're going to be just fine and you'll be able to use your team. Like I said, there's a couple of exceptions to that, but we're usually in good shape when it comes to this.
Yeah, the broker wants the best buyer,
Exactly.
most qualified buyer, person who can qualify for the debt and raise the equity to close this deal, because they force a unqualified buyer to use their guy, but they can't raise the money, they can't qualify for the debt. Then all of a sudden, there's a big goose egg and nobody's getting paid.
The other angle of that is that outside of the incentive to work for the sales broker's lender, a lot of the sales brokers will tell you they like working with somebody like us, somebody independent, because they can point the finger and say, hey, it's on you to get this deal done, right? If there's an issue with lending, they'd rather it be a third party group working it and solving that issue versus, the finger being pointed at them that, hey, your lender screwed up. There are a lot of nuances to it, but at the end of the day, have your team. You wouldn't use the seller's attorney, right, to review the PSA. That sounds asinine. So you probably shouldn't use the selling broker's team to bring 70 to 80% of the capital stack. Count on them versus counting on your team. Count on your team to do the deal.
Oh, I agree. So again, it does feel like extortion when we hear some of the borrowers. They come back to us and say, listen, we're getting hogtied that we have to use the broker's lender or we're not going to get this deal. And we're like, what? did they disclose that let's say it's a $10 million deal, that the seller's paying these people $150,000 as a commission, and then they're going to go back to their internal broker, and that person's going to pay them 20 to 40% of the commission, which could be another $40,000. So now they're going to make $190,000. We see that as an absolute conflict of interest that you have to be knowledgeable about. So I'm not banging the table for us. I'm talking about for every independent person, whether it's independent insurance or independent attorney or attorney office that works for you, that is trying to get you the best deal possible. I have no problems competing with other people. We do a great job, but I don't want to have the deck stacked against us when you don't know that these people are getting paid on top of what the seller is paying them. All right, James, pull me back down, please. Come on. What else?
That's all I got.
All right, Ricardo, any final words?
No, the one piece that I think you mentioned it earlier, Paul, but in this conversation, a lot of, when it does come up, it's common to hear the phrase, oh, the seller, it's not me, the sales broker, it's the seller feels more comfortable if you use our team. I haven't come across a scenario where that's actually the case. It's, the seller wants the best buyer and the buyer that can execute and get the seller, the best price with the best terms. So just understand that. Know where the incentives are and feel confident that you're doing the right thing for your deal and for your team.
Yeah, in the residential market, again, through RESPA, Section 8, it's illegal. I don't know why it's not in the same way on the commercial side. They must think that there's more sophisticated people on the commercial side. But if you don't know, I'm telling you that this is the conflict that we see out there. A lot of people that don't realize it, they get sucked into it, and they wish they had gone with us, but they got trapped. And all of a sudden, they spend $10,000-$15,000 for third parties to begin, and maybe they signed something that obligated them to use the seller's broker, not the buyer's broker, but the seller's broker. Heck, you don't have buyer representation typically in commercial real estate loans. You need somebody that's independent, looking out for you, and that's sometimes I would bang the table that it is Old Capital, making sure that we're reviewing stuff. So again, I appreciate everybody spending some time with us today. Get me off my soapbox. Thank you, James. Thank you, Ricardo. Again, on behalf of Ricardo and James, I'm Paul Peebles. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Old Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please join us at oldcapitalpodcast.com to sign up for our weekly email updates. We'll see you next week for another great interview.